Now at this point is where JavaScript becomes quite complicated, and it becomes complicated really because they use complicated words to do things. JavaScript tends to group instructions together, sort of piled one on top of the other, which gives some of the instructions really long, complicated names, and unfortunately they do have to be spelled correctly. Let's start with a simple one. I want a function to go on here, and to tell it that I'm starting to write the function, I use a curly bracket. I'm going to go down again, so now I'm looking at this, and I'm going to tell it that I'm going to have 3 variables. So 3 things that I'm going to use for my maths, which are x and y, which are going to be my 2 numbers, and r, which is going to be the result. Now those are going to be my variables, so I need to tell it that they're going to be my variables by saying var. So I was now expecting to see 3 variables. I want x to be the same as number 1, y to be the same as number 2, and r is going to be the result or the answer. So this is where we now get into some complicated writing. The only thing I can say about JavaScript is once you get used to these words, they are not difficult. Like any sort of English language word, once you get used to the spelling of them, they're quite easy. So what we want to say is x is equal to is the same as number 1. And it'd be nice if we could just put down x equals num1. Unfortunately we can't. We can start with the we start with the x equals, but then we get into this long phrase, which is document, and the document has got a small d. So go to the document and get one of the elements, one of the things on the page. An element has a capital A. So you go into the document, which is the web page, and you're going to get something from that web page. And you're going to look for it by looking for its identity, its ID. Okay? So go to the document, go and get something, and go and find it by its ID. Now notice now that I is a capital I. So whilst it looks like a mouthful, it is sensible. And what we'll need to say then is we're saying, well, what are you looking for? Well, you're going to the web page and you're looking for something that's got the ID, which is num1. Okay. So go to the document, find an element by its ID, because don't forget we've told it up here that the ID is number 1. So find the element by its ID, and the one you're looking for is number 1, and then set that to the value for x. And just like in the CSS, we need to finish the line with a semicolon. So we've said there's going to be 3 variables, x and y and r, and we've now gone to the web page, looked for something called num1, and set that as the value of x. Now, providing I've typed that out correctly, I can copy that and I can put that underneath. I can paste it, except this time I want to set the value of y. And y, I'm going to go to the web page, go to the document, look for something by its ID, and the one I'm looking for is number 2, and set that as the value of y. So there is a logic to how these things are written out. It'd be nice if you just say that x equals num1 and y equals num2, or even use num1 and num2. But this is sort of generally speaking in JavaScript how you have to write it out. The next bit will produce an error. We'll talk about the error in a minute. And that is that r equals x plus y, which seems remarkably simple. So now, for the moment, I have finished my function. I've told it there's going to be 3 variables, x, y and r. It's going to go and get x from the document itself, and it's looking for number 1. It's going to find y by going to the document and looking for something called number 2. and then it's going to get r by adding x and y together.